Hey everybody. I wanted to start these videos with the one that inspired me to finally do this because it's a project I've been thinking about for a while. I was talking to a good friend of mine, and she had been seeing a therapist who I had trained in the community in EMDR. And the therapist is fantastic and a wonderful EMDR therapist. And my friend said, "Oh, I just don't know if EMDR is for me." And I said, "Why? That's incorrect." And she said, "Well, I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't stop thinking about my to-do lists." And I knew at that point exactly what had happened. So during the basic training, there's a requirement that we have the people we're training have a target practiced on them as a client by one of the people learning, the therapist, during the training. So everyone has to process a trauma target. When we do that, we do what's called a low impact target, a target hopefully related to nothing else. Bring your phobia, bring your recent car accident, hopefully not your childhood trauma, but we know that the way trauma works, it all ties into that network anyway, but we try. And so we do something called a low impact event, which is like a SUD of a 3 or a 4 on that 0 to 10 scale. Enough that you're going to feel that shift, you're going to feel that discomfort as you guys get started, but it's not too much, very manageable. We encourage people when they leave the basic training, if they would like to, and they feel more comfortable, to start with clients with a low impact event to help them get used to being the therapist processing with their client, because I think there's some nerves around that. I'm asking you to do something you've never done, and it feels very different than everything you've been trained to do, and to help the client get a feel for it. Right? Dr. Francine Shapiro says to go for the worst trauma the first time you see the client for phase 3 through 7, because they'll feel amazing and they'll be so stoked to do more EMDR, right? We know that when you're first starting out, that can be overwhelming. So 10 years in, sure, that's fine. I like to do that. If the client is, of course, appropriate to do that. Right? And down to do that. When I first started, I did low impacts with my first clients on their first session for 2 years. Okay. What happened in this instance, I believe, because I didn't really ask a whole lot of questions, but I believe what happened is that they started with a low impact, and my friend couldn't get into it enough, right? Because it's a low impact. So that network wasn't on fire, for lack of a better term. Okay. So I want to light that network up so they know exactly where they're going. The script does such a beautiful job at that because we're moving from the front to the back of the brain, and we're moving from hemisphere to hemisphere. So by the time we're down in that body sensation, they feel it and their brain knows exactly where to go. Okay. So sometimes a low impact event doesn't give them that access, right? The other thing that can happen is the bilateral stimulation can be a little too slow and the sets can be a little too short. All right, so you need to play with that a little bit. I give my clients about 2 sets of nothing, I don't know, think about my laundry, right? Before I am going to intervene by first generally speeding up the set and lengthening it. I usually do kind of both. I lengthen the set first and then I might speed it up because I already have my clients going kind of as fast as they can go to create those linkages before, as fast as they can go while leaving a little bit of space for those tunnel moments, those ab reactions, those times we got to kick it up into high gear, right? So I'm already going pretty fast, but a lot of people, sometimes you'll start a little slower. So you have to play with that, especially as a new EMDR therapist. So I'll usually lengthen the set. My favorite length for a set is 60 passes. Okay, about a minute. That's the rate I like to go. 60 passes in 60 seconds. I'm usually using tappers. If that's virtual, if it's auditory, that works. If it's eye movements, the site we love to use is bilateralstimulation.io. That's usually set at a 7 for eye movements and then an 8.5 for audio or self-tap. And then on my EMDR kit, it just has the bars. It doesn't have the numbers, but the rate on the timed ones is 60 and 60. I love that length. First client, first time out the gate, I started about 30 seconds just to make sure we don't have any hidden pockets of dissociation I missed. And then I start to lengthen it if they can handle it. It's a different story with individuals with ADHD sometimes, where we're going to shorten that set so that we can catch them before they, zoom off to another place, because they have these like amazing brains that can go a million places. So I've got to kind of corral it a bit, but also sometimes not. It depends. It's going to depend with each client. Okay. All that to say, those are the first things that I do. If I go the initial 2 sets and they're still kind of, I don't know, I can't really grab it, right? Okay, cool. I'm going to lengthen the set on that third one, go another one, see if they're in it, because it's very normal for it to take a little bit of time to grab on, especially if it's a lower sud event. And I'm going to check back in then, and then potentially increase that speed. And then if there's any need for any more, I'll drop them into their body in an interweave on set 4 or 5. Okay. All that to say, there's no reason you can't start with a low impact, but you might need to get a little more involved to get them attached to that memory, because it doesn't have as much pull as one of those big ones will. All right. In the basic training, we scare you to never get involved. And so that's part of the dance you're learning here, is that, yeah, there are times. The other thing I want to show you is kind of how our network works. Okay. So here we go. So if we're looking at this network, and please don't feel overwhelmed by my artistic gifts. We're looking at traveling through the network, starting with the nodes. Now, generally, we're going to have several nodes throughout here, but I'm just going to show you one right now. Okay, so let's say this is at 4 years old, parents got divorced, and that's about a set of an 8. The next thing that connected to this was difficulty making friends in the first grade, maybe, and playing alone. Okay, set of 7. The next memory that got connected was being bullied in high school. The next memory that's connected is not fitting in at work. And then this memory, and what's bringing them in, is feeling paralyzed by interactions with my current boss. Okay. This is why we can start with the first, the worst, which might be the same, or let's say this is the worst, or the most recent. All right, those have a lot of charge, and we're going to generally end up working our way back here anyway. That's also why starting with the first is the biggest bang for your buck, right? Because we're going to pull all, these are other associated memories. We're going to pull all these throughs and all these through. If we get this one to a 0-7 clear, all these will come down at least in stress level. That SUD will at least decrease, if not generalize and process all the way through. All right. That's why it's so powerful. A low impact event, on the other hand, is something completely on its own over here. Standalone event, SUD of 3 or 4. Ideally, again, something that just happened recently that's tied to nothing. Okay? It's rare, but they exist. And in a lot of ways, they're a great place to start. All right. However, if I start here or even in here with these memories, this network, the whole network, is going to light up. All right. And there's going to be no problem for EMDR to get in there and do what it does best. All that to say, I think something that destroys confidence so much in clinicians is that they get out of the basic training, they go to try, they run into a speed bump like this, a very normal speed bump that we all run into, and they don't have the answers based on the basic, because I just spent 5 days talking very sternly about following the script and not interweaving if you don't have to. So what therapists do is they leave and they say, I'm never going to interweave. Okay. And then you've also just left. You're using this new script, this new lingo, this new modality. You're a little bit afraid. You're overwhelmed, and you don't think about what you could do to help them connect. So then your client leaves, says, I don't think this is for me. You leave and say, maybe it's me, right? It's not you. It's not you. I can't give you all this information in 5 days, even though I would love to. All right. This is something we all run into. It's just 10 years in, you know how to make it work. Okay. EMDR is such a resilient process. All right. Because it's something our brain already does on its own. that it absolutely can work. And in general, you're not going to get in the way of it, okay? So people will be like, okay, well, I'm going to do nothing and step back, right? Instead of kind of stepping in and saying, what can we do to really get this going? All right, so those are the things. Length of bilateral, increase the speed of bilateral, drop them into their body, my favorite interweave. Do that because we get a lot of really heady people coming in, lots of anxiety, intelligence, really good at cognitions because that's what they've learned. That's how they've learned to function in therapy and in their daily life. Okay. I need you in your body. I need you to feel about it, not think about it. Okay. So length, speed, drop them into their body. And then just remembering that network needs to be lit up. So it's always okay too. If you're at a low impact target, no one's going anywhere, you've tried all those things, say, hey, let's stop this one. Let's start a different target. I think that we can both do this. Let's do something that's a little bit more intense. Okay. Stop that target, move on to another one. All right. Okay. A lot of information. Hope it was helpful. I'll see you guys soon.